We're very pleased to have a special presentation tonight. It's an autobiography in music with ballads and whatever else Dan wants to sing. So, without further ado, let us bring on Dan Isaacson. By the way, he's a neighbor from St. Andrews South.
Oh.
You want this on? Yeah.
Welcome to the autobiography of a folk singer. You'll hear stories about my development as a folk singer. This little light of mine, gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, gonna let it shine. Every day, every day, every day, every way, gonna let the little light shine. Monday brought me the gift of love. Tuesday light came from above. Wednesday told me to have more faith. Thursday gave me another day's grace. Friday told me to watch and pray. Saturday told me what to say. Sunday gave me the power divine to let my little light shine. This little light of mine, gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, gonna let it shine. Every day, every day, every day, every way, gonna let a little light shine. Well, the light that shines is the light of love. The light's that darkness from above. Shines on me, shines on you. Shows what the power of love can do. Shine my light both far and near. Shine my light both bright and clear. Every dark corner that I find, I'm gonna let my little light shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, gonna let it shine. Every day, every day, every day, every way, gonna let a little light shine. Every day, every day, every day, every way, gonna let a little light shine. Thank you. When I was 8 years old, I went to a camp in Massachusetts by the name of Camp Robinson Crusoe. And that was the first place I was exposed to folk songs. We sang, the counselors would put us around a campfire on Saturday evening and play guitars and sing songs from the 4-H club and the Boy Scouts and the beginning folk music movement. Many of the songs are what's known as zipper songs. They're the songs where the leader sings a verse, sings a line, and then the other people sing the same line twice, and then the third time it's either repeated a third time or there's a different line there. And zipper songs were very easy for young kids to learn, and as a matter of fact they're also very easy for us older kids to learn. So you can sing with me on this. You probably heard it. Everybody loves Saturday night. Everybody loves Saturday night. Everybody, 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 everybody loves Saturday night. Sing it. Everybody loves Saturday night. Everybody loves Saturday night. That's the way. Everybody, 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 everybody loves Saturday night. For those of you that took some Spanish in elementary school, todo el mundo quiere el sábado. Todo el mundo quiere el sábado. Todo el mundo, todo el mundo, todo el mundo, todo el mundo, todo el mundo quiere el sábado. In English, everybody loves Saturday night. That's the way. Everybody loves Saturday night. Everybody, 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 everybody loves Saturday night. For those of you in high school that took French, tout le monde aime samedi soir. Tout le monde aime samedi soir. Tout le monde, tout le monde, tout le monde, tout le monde, tout le monde aime samedi soir. In English, everybody loves Saturday night. Everybody loves Saturday night. Everybody, 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 everybody loves Saturday night. Those of you in college that took a course in college Yiddish, Jeder hat lieb Shabbos bei Nacht. Jeder hat lieb Shabbos bei Nacht. Jeder hat lieb Shabbos bei Nacht. In English now, everybody loves Saturday night. That's the way. Everybody loves Saturday night. Everybody, 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 everybody loves Saturday night. Everybody, 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 everybody loves Saturday night. When I got back from summer camp, I was lucky to have a music teacher in elementary school who could play the guitar, and she would accompany me while I taught the kids in my class the songs that I learned. So that encouraged my singing. And when I was in junior high school, lower junior high, you know how the kids are when it's time to go to bed. They say, no, 5 more minutes. Let me see the end of this show. Then I'll go to bed. Well, I wasn't one of those kids. My mother says, time to go to bed, so I go up to my room, I close the door, I climb into bed, I plump the pillow under my head, and then I pull the radio off the side table and put it under the pillow and turn on a radio station in Texas. This was an AM station. I was in New York. And this was an AM station in Texas, and if you remember back in the 30s and 40s, getting an AM station from Texas, it would fade in and fade out. And this was a station that not only faded in and faded out, but it had a lot of commercials. But there were only 2 radio stations that I knew of that had country music, and I really was taken with country music. So I would listen to this one. The other one was in New Jersey, believe it or not. So Texas, I'd listen, and I learned quite a few songs. Here's one of the kinds of songs that I picked up. This is really not what's considered a song, it's a talking blues. It goes like this. Well, the sun goes up, sun goes down, hands on the clock keep going around. Just get up and it's time to lay down. Life gets tedious, don't it? My shoes untied, but I don't care. I ain't figuring on going nowhere. I'd have to wash and comb my hair and That's just wasted effort. Water in the well's getting lower and lower. I can't take a bath for 6 months more, but I've heard it said, and it's true I'm sure, that too much bathing will weaken you. I open the door and the flies swarm in. I shut the door and I'm sweating again, and in the process it cracked my shin, just one darn thing after another. My old mule, he must be sick. I jabbed him in the rump with a pin on a stick. He humped his back, but he wouldn't kick. There's something cockeyed somewhere. And there's a hound dog howling so forlorn, the laziest dog that ever was born. He's howling 'cause he's sitting on a thorn and he's just too tired to move over. There's a mouse chawing on the pantry door. He's been at it for a month or more. When he gets through, he'll sure be sore, 'cause there ain't a darn thing in there. Well, the tin roof leaks and the chimney leans, and there's a hole in the seat of my old blue jeans. I've had the last of the pork and beans. You just can't depend on nothing. Cows going dry, hens won't lay, fish quit biting last Saturday. Troubles piling up day by day, and now I'm getting dandruff. Grief and misery, pains and woes, debts and taxes, and so it goes. And now I'm getting a cold in the nose. Life gets tasteless, don't it? If you'll excuse me, I'm going to sit down. Okay, that's more comfortable. When I was young, my folks were but they enjoyed having people around. So we would have cousins and friends and high school buddies from my parents, and there were so many people around, I never could quite tie together who was what and who was a relative and how they were related. And it was a pretty rough situation. Well, you probably have the same kind of situation, except maybe with your grandchildren, you know who they all are. But this guy that I'm going to talk about here, he had even more trouble than I did. Now, many, many years ago, when I was 23, I was married to a widow who was pretty as could be. This widow had a grown-up daughter, had hair of red. My father fell in love with her, soon the two was wed. This made my dad my son-in-law, changed my very life. My daughter was my mother, 'cause she was my father's wife. To complicate the matter, even though it brought me joy, I soon became the father of a bouncing baby boy. My little baby then became a brother-in-law to Dad. So became my uncle, though it made me very sad. For if he was my uncle, that also made him brother of the widow's grown-up daughter, who of course was my stepmother. Oh, I'm my own grandpa. I'm my own grandpa. It sounds funny, I know, but it really is so, for I'm my own grandpa. My father's wife then had a son who kept him on the run. He became my grandchild, for he was my daughter's son. My wife is now my mother's mother, and it makes me blue, because although she is my wife, she's my grandmother too. Oh, I'm my own grandpa. I'm my own grandpa. It sounds funny, I know, but it really is so, for I'm my own grandpa. Now, if my wife is my grandmother, then I'm her grandchild. And every time I think of it, it nearly makes me wild. For now I have become the strangest case you ever saw. As husband of my grandmother, I am my own grandpa. Oh, I'm my own grandpa. I'm my own grandpa. It sounds funny, I know, but it really is so, for I'm my own grandpa. About this time, my mother thought it was a good time for me to start piano lessons. Every kid's got to have piano lessons. So the problem was that the teacher she selected for me was the teacher that she took piano lessons from. And when she started taking piano lessons, we lived in Manhattan. When it was my turn to take piano lessons, we lived in the Bronx, in the West Bronx. But she insisted I go to her piano teacher, so once a week we would walk down the hill, get onto the subway, take an hour ride on the subway, come up the stairs in the subway, walk a block, go upstairs to my teacher's apartment, take an hour lesson, come downstairs, go back to the subway, take an hour's ride on the subway, go up the hill, and it killed about 4 hours during the day, and I'd much rather be out playing with my friends. So I wasn't a very good piano student, I must admit. And after about a year, my mother decided I didn't have much talent for it, so we decided I'd quit. Well, at one point also, I wanted to play the accordion. A friend of mine played the accordion, so I told this piano teacher that I would like maybe to try and play the accordion. And she looked at me with a scowl and she said, "You don't want to play the accordion." She said, "The accordions are played by old bums standing in the subway stairs looking for nickels and dimes." And she says, "I don't want you to be that. You don't want to be an old bum." So that finished my accordion playing. Another thing that I thought about was possibly playing the organ. My father had lots of records of organ symphonies and organ concertos, and I liked the sound of the instrument. And my father was very nice to me. He took me to a church, and he asked the organist if he would give me lessons. And the organist said, "Well, I'd be glad to give you lessons. Come back when you can play all of the Bach inventions by heart." And since I couldn't even play the first bar of any one of the inventions, that scotched my my organ playing life. In the meantime, though, excuse me. In the meantime, I enjoyed listening to my friends play guitars and banjos, and I was raised on Josh White records and the Weavers and Pete Seeger and some of the other folk music people who were around in those days. And the music was everywhere. I'd go to a party in somebody's apartment and there'd be 50 people in there. And sometimes when the apartment got crowded enough, there'd be people in the bathtub playing and singing. One of these friends, his name was Roger Sprung, played the banjo, a wonderful banjo player. He said, "Would you like to go down on Easter weekend? Would you like to go down to Galax, Virginia? They have a fiddlers festival, a fiddlers convention competition." And I said, "Sure, sounds like fun." So we got in his car and we went down to Galax, Virginia. And when we got there, there was a huge parking lot with probably 100 cars. And we were going to sleep either in the car or next to the car in our sleeping bags. And for 3 days and 3 nights, 24 hours a day, there was music going on by almost all the cars. People were jamming and playing and heard great music. So I was in seventh heaven. Somebody asked Roger to play for a square dance. And he said, "No, I don't want to." They twisted his arm. He finally gave in. Said, "Okay, I'll go." He said to me, "Come on with me and give me some support." So I went with him. He took his banjo, I took my guitar. And I finally discovered in not too long a time that the reason he was reticent about playing for the dance was that the square dance, if you've ever watched a square dance, everybody in the square dance has to do the same routine before the dance is over. So it took about 45 minutes. And when you're playing music that has 3 chords, and you play it over and over and over again for 45 minutes, your fingers are pretty well in bad shape. So I understood why he didn't want to play. Here's one of the songs. Here's one of the songs that was a square dance type song. Well, all I want in this creation is a pretty little wife and a big plantation. Hey, pretty little black-eyed Susie. Hey, black-eyed Susie. Hey, pretty little black-eyed Susie. Hey. All I need to make me happy, 2 little boys to call me Pappy. Hey, pretty little black-eyed Susie. Hey, black-eyed Susie. Hey, pretty little black-eyed Susie. Hey, hey, hey. Now it's up Red Oak, down salt water, some old man's gonna lose his daughter. Hey, pretty little black-eyed Susie. Hey, black-eyed Susie. Hey, pretty little black-eyed Susie. Hey, hey, hey. Now Susie and the boys went a huckleberry picking. Boys got drunk and Susie got a licking. Hey, pretty little black-eyed Susie. Hey, black-eyed Susie. Hey, pretty little black-eyed Susie. Hey, hey, hey. Well, it's black-eyed Susie, about half grown. She jumps on the boys like a dog on a bone. Hey, black-eyed Susie. Hey, pretty little black-eyed Susie. Hey, black-eyed Susie. Hey, hey, hey. Yes, some got drunk, some got boozy. I went home with boozy Susie. Hey, pretty little black-eyed Susie. Hey, black-eyed Susie. Hey, pretty little black-eyed Susie. Hey. Well, there's 2 old maids sitting in the sand, each one wishing that the other was a man. Hey, pretty little black-eyed Susie. Hey, black-eyed Susie. Hey, pretty little black-eyed Susie. Hey, hey, hey. 2 old men neath a tree so shady, each one wishing that the other was a lady. Hey, pretty little black-eyed Susie. Hey, black-eyed Susie. Hey, pretty little black-eyed Susie. Hey, hey, hey. Now there's 2 big dogs sitting in a ditch, each one wishing that the other was a fire hydrant. Hey, pretty little black-eyed Susie. Hey, black-eyed Susie. Hey, pretty little black-eyed Susie. Hey, hey, hey. Yes, I love my wife, love my baby, love my biscuits soft in gravy. Hey, pretty little black-eyed Susie. Hey, black-eyed Susie. Hey, pretty little black-eyed Susie. Hey, hey, hey. At the end of my junior year in high school, my music teacher said to me, Dan, how come you don't play the guitar? I know you like to sing and you go with your friends all the time. I said, well, I never had a guitar, and so I don't know how to play. She said, well, I would be glad to loan you my guitar. I have a guitar, and I'd be glad to loan you my guitar. And I said, no, I couldn't borrow it. I was afraid I'd damage it. That's a nice instrument. So she said, well, I bought it in Mexico. It was fairly cheap. I said, no, I'm afraid I'll hurt it. She said, I only paid $5 for it. And I said, no, I really shouldn't do that. And then she said, and it's got a big crack in it. So I took it. And that finished my whole summer. The next day I sat down in a chair, and I don't think I got up for the whole summer. I was practicing chords and singing songs that I knew and reading books of songs for the whole summer. And by the end of the summer, I knew at least 3 chords. And with 3 chords, you can sing almost any folk song. And I was pretty dangerous. I could sing a lot and I could accompany. So during the next year, my senior year, I spent a lot of time with my guitar and banjo playing friends, singing and learning new songs. After the summer, after my senior year, I went off to college with a friend from home. His name was Howie Adler, and we got up at freshman orientation week. They were looking for people to entertain the freshman class during orientation week. And Howie said, how about we sing something for him? And I said, no, I'd be nervous. I've never sung for 1,000 people before. He said, we know some songs that I'm sure they'll enjoy. So he finally talked me into it. And we picked a song that was an old music hall ballad from England. If you remember your English history from the 1500s, there was a king by the name of Henry VIII in England, and he was the guy that had quite a few wives, one at a time. Whenever he got tired of a wife, he would accuse her of treason and have her head cut off. That solved the alimony problem. It solved the child custody situation. The problem was one of these gals didn't like it, and she came back in the Tower of London. Now in the Tower of London, large as life, the ghost of Anne Boleyn walks article there. Now Anne Boleyn was once King Henry's wife, until he had the headsman bobber hair. Now this all happened long, long years ago, but she comes up at night to tell him so, with her head tucked underneath her arm. She walks the bloody tower, with her head tucked underneath her arm at the midnight hour. She comes to warn King Henry, she means giving him what for. Gags up, she's going to tell him off for having spilt her gore. And just in case the headsman wants to give her an encore, she has her head tucked underneath her arm. Now the sentries think that it's a football that she carries in, and when they've had a few they shout, "His army going to win?" They think that it's Red Grange instead of poor old Anne Boleyn, with her head tucked underneath her arm. Now sometimes gay King Henry gives a spread, for all his pals and gals are ghastly crew. The headsman carves the joint and cuts the bread, when in comes Anne Boleyn to queer the dew. She holds her head up with a wild woo-woo, woo-ha! And then he shouts, "Don't drop it in the soup!" With her head tucked underneath her arm, she walks the bloody tower, with her head tucked underneath her arm at the midnight hour. Along the draughty corridors 4 miles and miles she goes. She often catches cold, poor thing, it's cold there when it blows. And it's awfully awkward for the Queen to have to blow her nose, with her head tucked underneath her arm. While we're on the subject of Old English music hall ballads, here's one that it reminds me of. It's called "They Are Moving Father's Grave to Build a Sewer, and they're shifting him regardless of expense. They're shifting his remains to make way for city drains, to satisfy some nearby residents. Oh, blimey. Now what's the use of having a religion if when you're dead your troubles never cease? All wrapped up in a shirt, covered up with stones and dirt, at least a man's entitled to some peace. Oh, blimey. Now in life our father never was a quitter. and it don't seem how he's going to be one now. All wrapped up in his sheets, he will haunt them toilet seats, and only let them go as he'll allow. Go blimey, now won't there be a mighty constipation? And won't those eyebrow neighbors rant and rave? But they got what they deserve, 'cause they had the bloody nerve to mess around a British workman's grave. While I was at Cornell, after the first year, I discovered that there was a professor in the English department who taught a course in folk literature, and I was dying to take the course. The only problem was that I had a conflict. I was scheduled to take physical chemistry at the same hour, and so I sort of gave in and said, okay, I'll have to take it another time. But what I discovered was the textbook we were using was written by the lecturer. And when he lectured, he read the textbook to us. So I said, what do I need to go to the lecture for? I can read the textbook at home, and I can go and listen to Professor Thompson's class, which I did, and learned a lot from it, had a great time, and it was very nice. And I got to know the professor. So the following year, he asked me, he had had a stroke a while ago, and he needed an assistant to take attendance and to put the needle on the records and to sing some of the songs that he was talking about. So he hired me as the assistant for the next semester, and I organized my free time so that I could go to his class. A small world department, it's amazing how much there is in the way of small world in this field. The fellow who took my position as his assistant the following year was a young fellow by the name of Peter. You would know him from the very well-known folk music trio, Peter, Paul, and Mary. So he took my job after that. There was a college down the hill from Cornell. Cornell was up on a hill if you've never been there. Down the hill, and it was called Ithaca College, and it had good programs in music and drama and dance. And one of the dance teachers asked me if I would sing and accompany and narrate a program that she was doing called Folksingers, and it consisted of music from Woody Guthrie and poetry from Woody Guthrie, and they were going to dance to the music and the poetry. So I did that, and had a wonderful time with that, learned a lot. Small world department again. About 45 years later, a cousin of mine has a dance group. They danced all over the world, and she lives in lower New York State. So she wanted to do folksing, the Woody Guthrie folksing. And she was looking around for somebody to do the narration and the singing. And one of her good friends is a fellow by the name of Pete Seeger. And she asked Pete if he would do the narration and the songs. So Pete Seeger took my part. I was asked if I'd like to do a folk music show on the campus radio station, WVBR, and I designed it to be a combination of playing folk records from my quite large, by now, music collection, and singing with a weekly guest from the campus. It was very well received. One of the most popular songs that I did was this one. As I walked out in the streets of Laredo, as I walked out in Laredo one day, I spied a poor cowboy all wrapped in white linen, all wrapped in white linen, as cold as the clay. I can hear you saying to yourself, what's so popular about that for a college crowd? Well, the first verse wasn't the popular ones. Second verse went like this. There was blood on the saddle and blood blood on the ground and a great big puddle of blood all around. Well, a cowboy lay in it, all covered with gore, and he won't be a-riding his bronco no more. Well, pity that cowboy, all bloody and dead, for his bronco fell on him and mashed in his head. There was blood on the saddle and blood on the ground and a great big puddle of blood all around. I think that song is more apt for junior high level, but the college students liked it nonetheless. There were two types of songs that I really liked in my life. One was hobo songs about the hobos that traveled the rails and traveled the boxcars, walked the roads, hitchhiked, traveled around the country and saw the country. The other kind was blues type songs, and I've sung the blues for you already. I like the hobo songs so much, as a matter of fact, that when my wife Marie and I retired, we bought a motorhome, a recreation vehicle, and we lived in it for 15 years, traveling around the country. We were literally hobos. We traveled to every state in the United States. We didn't go to Hawaii in our motorhome. We went in another motorhome that we rented there. But we really enjoyed the country, and it's a beautiful country. So we enjoyed being hobos. This song that I'm going to do now is a combination of a hobo song and a blues. Well, my daddy, he's an engineer. My brother drives a hack. My sister takes in washing, and the baby balls the jack. And it looks like I'm never gonna cease my wandering. I've been a-wandering early and late, from New York City to the Golden Gate. Been working in the army, working on a farm, and all I got to show for it is the muscle in my arm. And it looks like I'm never gonna cease my wandering. Now there's waves in the ocean, there's eels in the sea. A red-headed woman made a fool out of me. Yes, there's waves in the ocean, there's ripples in a brook. Ain't one gal in this town I'd give a second look. And it looks like I'm never gonna cease my wandering. Now sometimes when stars are shining bright and I'm all alone, I hanker for some quiet place I can call my home. But it looks like I'm never gonna cease my wandering. Yes, my daddy, he's an engineer. My brother drives a hack. My sister takes in washing, and I know they want me back. but it looks like I'm never gonna cease my wandering. In the year between my freshman and sophomore years at Cornell in the summer, I went to a summer program in the Bronx called the Encampment for Citizenship. And we discussed all kinds of things that made good citizens and well-informed citizens. And on weekends, they programmed well-known speakers and politicians to come up. And we were very lucky. One weekend, we got into a bus and we were bussed up to Hyde Park and had a picnic lunch outdoors with Eleanor Roosevelt, which was very nice. And another weekend, we had Woody Guthrie come to sing for us. And he wanted a place to rehearse. Since I was the resident folk singer, they asked me to take him to a place to rehearse. Well, I took him to a classroom, and he played one chord. And he said, "No, it's too dead in here. I want something more lively." I said, "Well, where would you like to go?" He said, "Well, take me to the boys' room." So I took him to the boys' bathroom, and that's where he warmed up. It had great acoustics, and then he did his program for us. And that was my experience with Woody Guthrie. Small World Department, again, many years later, I dated a woman whose best friend was Woody's wife. Well, let's do Woody's song. By the way, if you ever get a chance to watch the PBS shows that give the life of Woody Guthrie, I strongly recommend you watch it, because he was extremely prolific songwriter and poet. He wrote all kinds of songs. He was hired by the WPA in the Depression to write songs. For instance, he wrote about the building of the Grand Coulee Dam, and he wrote about the Columbia River. He wrote about the plains and the poor and the migrants, and just getting a feel for how many thousands of songs he wrote. It was absolutely amazing. America's second national anthem. This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Island. If you know it, sing it. From the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream water. This land was made for you and me. Well, I roamed and I rambled, and I followed my footsteps o'er the sparkling sands of your diamond desert. And all around me a voice came calling, singing, this land was made for you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land, from California, sing it out, to the New York Island. That's better. From the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream water. This land was made for you and me. Well, I followed your low hills, and I followed your cliff rims, your marble canyons and sunny bright waters. As the fog was a-lifting, I could see all around me. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Island, from the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream water. This land was made for you and me. Was a big high wall there that tried to stop me, and on the one side said private property, but on the other side it didn't say nothing. That side was made for you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Island, from the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream water. This land was made for you and me. After college, my first wife had to go get a master's degree in education so she could teach. And I was darned if I was going to go get a job yet. I was enjoying education too much. So we found a school, the University of Iowa, which had an education department, a good education department, and a good music and drama department. So my wife then took education courses, and I took education and minored in drama. One of my classmates in the drama classes, I was trying to decide if I was going to be a folk singer or use it as an avocation rather than a vocation. Interesting enough, I raised the question with Pete Seeger, and he talked me out of doing it as a vocation. He says, you've got a family to raise, so do it as an avocation so you can enjoy it. In any case, one of my classmates in the drama classes was a young man by the name of Jerry Silverman. We acted together in several plays. Some of them were written by students at the school, and we acted together in Arthur Miller's The Crucible. And you would know him by his stage name, Gene Wilder. When I discovered he was going to do a comedy, when I first heard he was going to do a comedy, I laughed myself silly. I said, he hasn't got a funny bone in his body. He was such a sober sides when I was in school with him. And after I saw him in his first comedy, I realized he had some comedic talents as well. The Crucible has in it jail cells, jailhouse, and it has a judge's chambers. And here's a song that has both of those as well. Just a minute, don't go away. Well, the scene was in the jailhouse, and if curfew rang that night, the guy in number 13 cell would go out like a light. She knew her dad was innocent, so plucky little Nell had tied her tender torso to the clapper of the bell. Oh, hang on the bell, Nellie, hang on the bell. Your poor dad is locked in a cold prison cell. As you swing to the left and you swing to the right, remember that curfew must never ring tonight. Well, it all began when Nellie said no, no to handsome Jack, and struggled when he tried to kiss her by the railroad track. Her paw came down to save her as the train came down the line, and Jack fell back across the track and paid the price of crime. Oh, hang on the bell, Nellie, hang on the bell. Your poor dad is locked in a cold prison cell. As you swing to the left and you swing to the right, remember that curfew must never ring tonight. Oh, her father was arrested and brought up before the law. A policeman said, old handsome Jack ain't handsome anymore. Nellie cried and pleaded, but the jury didn't care. They didn't have a sofa, so they offered him the chair. Oh, hang on the bell, Nellie, hang on the bell. Your poor daddy's locked in a cold prison cell. As you swing to the left and you swing to the right, remember that curfew must never ring tonight. Oh, they pulled upon the bell rope, but there was no tingling. They couldn't get their business done, the curfew would not ring. To and fro swung Nellie, as below they pulled and heaved, when suddenly a voice cried, stop, your father's been reprieved. Oh, hang on the bell, Nellie, hang on the bell. Your poor daddy's locked in a cold prison cell. As you swing to the left and you swing to the right, remember that curfew must never ring tonight. Oh, that's the bedtime story all the wardens love to tell. The convicts listen to the tale of plucky little Nell, and how she saved her dad that night. The curfew would not ring, and tears run down their faces as in harmony they sing. Oh, hang on the bell, Nellie, hang on the bell. Your poor daddy's locked in a cold prison cell. As you swing to the left and you swing to the right, remember that curfew must never ring tonight. I got one more song in me, but I got to do it standing up. Well, I really appreciate you all being here. It's nice to have an audience. Especially since this is the second concert I've given in 30 years. I put my guitar away in 1978, and I hadn't sung or practiced it until October of last year when I gave this program over at St. Andrews South, so I really appreciate having an audience. I'm on my way, and I won't turn back. I'm on my way, and I won't turn back. I'm on my way, and I won't turn back. I'm on my way, oh yeah, I'm on my way. I asked my brother, would he go with me? Asked my brother, would he go with me? I asked my brother, would he go with me? I'm on my way, oh yeah, I'm on my way. If he says no, I'm gonna go anyhow. If he says no, gonna go anyhow. If he says no, gonna go anyhow. I'm on my way, oh yeah, I'm on my way. I'm on my way, and I won't turn back. I'm on my way, and I won't turn back. I'm on my way, and I won't turn back. I'm on my way, yeah, I'm on my way. I'm on my way to the freedom land. On my way to the freedom land. I'm on my way to the freedom land. I'm on my way. I'm on my way, I'm on my way, and I won't turn back. I'm on my way, and I won't turn back. I'm on my way, and I won't turn back. I'm on my way, oh yeah, I'm on my way.
Don't forget the evaluation forms on your way out. So you can come back in another 30 years.
Well, there's part two of this. I only gave you the first part of the autobiography.
I would try it.